One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The latter procedure, however, is disagreeable and therefore not popular. In the year 1913, Carl Jung began recording what he described as his most difficult experiment. Jung's experiment, a journey to lighten the darkness within his own psyche, led him to a world beyond the surface of consciousness, into its unconscious depths. What he found was not only the framework for his future psychology, but also a collective and alive realm within all. While he did come to terms such as the collective unconscious and archetypes to formulate his analytical psychology, the magic of his journal entries gives us the raw emotion and experience he was witnessing. He had no formal names, but rather the depths to describe the location and the dead that were in contact with him. Before understanding who those dead are, we must first enter their world. Exploring the world of the dead. The idea of leaving the everyday world to go to another world to retrieve or receive information that is then brought back into conscious reality is a theme that runs throughout time. Many are familiar with Joseph Campbell's work on the hero's journey. We are also reminded of earlier examples such as Dante's Inferno, or at the roots of Western civilization with Homer's Odyssey in ancient Greece. In ancient Greek mythology, again at the roots of Western civilization, this journey was called a Nekyia, or Katabatis. It represents a going down to the underworld or Hades in Greek mythology, that world of the dead. Jung wrote, "The motif of the Nekyia is found everywhere in antiquity, and practically all over the world. It expresses the psychological mechanism of introversion of the conscious mind into the deeper layers of the unconscious psyche. Unfortunately, the idea of going beyond one's own consciousness has been distorted and lost. It is now only reserved for the wishful fantasy spiritual types of modern day." On this, Jung writes, "The unconscious induces a panic fear in civilized people, not least on account of the menacing analogy with insanity. The intellect has no objection to analyzing the unconscious as a passive object. On the contrary, such an activity would coincide with our rational expectations. But to let the unconscious go on its own way and to experience it as a reality is something that exceeds the courage and capacity of the average European. He prefers simply not to understand this problem." While it is easy to blame the spiritless, physical, and egotistical society for this lack of conscious depth, the true blame here is fear. It is this fear that keeps modern man and woman in constant panic of their dead, let alone the collective dead, that freezes one from conscious expansion. And this journey to the unconscious within is not only fearful in our oversensitive times, but throughout history. Joseph Campbell called it a hero's journey for a reason. It requires a great deal of courage and strength to complete. Jung described it as the spirit of the depths where the shadowy dead or shades live. And Dante went to hell. There wasn't a pill or a button or a special tea to drink or a specific meditation to follow to lead one into the unknown depths of consciousness. You are soberly led within, usually by a higher form, into another world. Free will at this point is out of the picture. And you can see why today not many souls will dare to enter, as our egos like to be fully in control of reality. So before we get to our prayer, it is wise to understand that a mental discipline is required to build the stillness and courage before beginning this journey. It is not titled The Land of Milk and Honey, but rather The Depths, or The Land of the Dead. It is also important to note in the scene that follows, Jung was not on any known drugs and hallucinating inner experiences. He was, which we've just seen in the archetypal myth, following an ancient tradition of being taken to another world. As Jung's soul tells him in a 1928 Black Book entry, about 15 years after his beginning of this so-called experiment, "Come and let yourself be led. I lead you to the abyss." Who are the dead? While the dead show up throughout the Red and Black books, it is specifically in the second layer of the Red Book chapter titled Sucunda, where Jung provides his personal thoughts on the matter, or rather, spirits. As our world represents consciousness in a sense of order, the unconscious, the other world, is a bit chaotic. Jung begins his introduction of the dead with this breaking through into the world of chaos. If you break through this most everyday of walls, the overwhelming stream of chaos will flood in. Chaos is not single, but an unending multiplicity. It is not formless, otherwise it would be single. But it is filled with figures that have a confusing and overwhelming effect due to their fullness. On the figures, he adds, these figures are the dead, not just your dead. That is, all the images of the shapes you took in the past, which your ongoing life has left behind, but the thronging dead of human history, the ghostly procession of the past, which is an ocean compared to the drops of your own lifetime. These dead are not only the parts of us that we've left behind, our own shadows, so to say, such as memories and traumas, rejected contents, one-sided beliefs and complexes, but also the collective dead such as archetypes and our own human ancestry. Jung writes, when the time has come and you open the door to the dead, your horrors will also afflict your brother, for your continence proclaims the disaster. Hence, withdrawal and enter solitude, since no one can give you counsel if you wrestle with the dead. Do not cry for help if the dead surround you. Otherwise, the living will take flight, and they are your only bridge to the day. Live the life of the day and do not speak of the mysteries, but dedicate the night to bring about the salvation of the dead. For whoever well-meaningly tears you away from the dead has rendered you the worst service, since he has torn your life branch from the tree of divinity. Again, we see this notion of fear playing a factor in the ordeal, but for Jung, fear was not going to stop him. He saw the value in the dead, not only from personal salvation from the dead that he left behind unconsciously, but also a great work for the collective of humanity. On this great work for humanity, Jung adds, the creation of the new shrinks from the day since its essence is secret. It prepares the destruction of precisely this day in hope of leading it over into a new creation. Thus, do penance. Consider what fell victim to death for the sake of Christianity. Lie it before you and force yourself to accept it. For the dead need salvation. The number of the unredeemed dead has become greater than the number of living Christians. Therefore, it is time we accept the dead. Then turn to the dead, listen to their lament, and accept them with love. This new will be built on the old, and the meaning of what has become will become manifest. It is in this dead where the broken parts of ourselves and humanity are found. In facing them, giving them the blood they demand, these broken parts may be regathered. This process is what Jung calls a hidden and strange major work. We are a blinded race. We live only on the surface, only in the present, and we think only of tomorrow. We deal roughly with the past in that we do not accept the dead. We want to work only with visible success. Above all, we want to be paid. We would consider it insane to do hidden work that does not visibly serve men. There is no doubt that the necessity of life forced us to prefer only those fruits one can taste. But who suffers more from the tempting and misleading influence of the dead than those who have gone wholly missing on the surface of the world? There is one necessary but hidden and strange work, a major work, which you must do in secret for the sake of the dead. He who cannot obtain his own visible field and vineyard is held fast by the dead, who demands the work of atonement from him. And until he has fulfilled this, he cannot get to his outer work, since the dead do not let him. He shall have to search his soul and act in stillness at their behest, and complete the mystery. Do not look forward so much, but back and into yourself, so that you will not fail to hear the dead. With that, we join Jung a day after Christmas in 1915 as he is looking back and into himself. Black Book entry, December 26th, 1915. Jung is taught a prayer. We begin with Jung in discussion with what is labeled as the dead one, a dead woman, about the sacrifice of joy. The dead one finishes a lengthy response to Jung's question about joy, in which she said, "Joy can never be prepared, but exists of its own accord, or exists not at all. All you must do is fulfill your task, nothing else. Joy comes from fulfillment, not from searching for it." Jung replies, "You are strict." The dead one whips back, "I have the power. I want to command. You need to obey." Jung, "I am anxious that you will destroy me." The dead one responds, "There is no salvation outside my service." Here a lengthy discussion ensues in which the dead one wants the dead to be respected and tended as once were the gods, not only by Jung, but by the collective. The dead want a church, not an outer church, but rather an inner community. Jung, confused, says, "There should be nothing visible?" The dead one answers, "No, everything ought to be spiritual. Outer dealings are limited to signs with solid meanings." Jung, still perplexed, "That doesn't bear thinking about. It's incomprehensible." She replies, "Community with the dead is what you and the dead need." Jung, "Do you mean worship the spirits?" The dead one answers, "Do not commingle with any of the dead, but stand apart from them and give each his due." Jung asks, "What is it that they demand?" The dead one, "Your prayers." Jung replies, "To the dead? Which ones?" To which the dead one answers, "All of them." Jung says to the dead one, "Teach me the prayer to the dead." The prayer to the dead. Listen, here it is. You dead, I call you. You shades of the departed, who have cast off the torment of living. Come here, my blood. The juices of my life will be your meal and your drink. Sustain yourself from me, so that life and speech will be yours. Come, you dark and restless ones. I will refresh you with my blood, the blood of the living one, so that you will gain speech and life, in me and through me. I need you, and you need me. The God forces me to address this prayer to you so that you come to life. Too long have we left you alone. Let us build the bond of community, so that the living and dead images will become one, and the past will live on in the present. Our desire pulls us to the living world, and we are lost in our desire. Come to the potion of the living blood. Drink your fill so that you will be saved from the inextinguishable and unrelenting power of vivid longing for visible, graspable, and present being. Drink from our blood of desire that begets evil as quarrel, discord, ugliness, violent deeds, and famishment. Take, eat, this is my body that lives for you. Take, eat, drink, this is my blood whose desire flows for you. Come, celebrate a Last Supper with me for your redemption and mine. Help me to understand your language so that I will not stray from you nor you from me. I need community with you so that I fall prey neither to the community of the living nor to my desire and yours, whose envy is insatiable and therefore begets evil. Help me so that I do not forget that my desire is a sacrificial fire for you. You are my community. I live what I can live for the living, but I cannot live my excess of longing for the living. It belongs to you, you shades. We need your living with us. Be auspicious to us, and open our closed spirit so that we may become blessed with the redeeming light. May it happen thus. Amen. Conclusion. I conclude with remarks from the dead one just after providing Jung this prayer. The dead one continues, address this prayer to the dead. It should be so that you will have redemption. Great is the need of the dead. The God needs no sacrificial prayer. He stands beyond goodwill or ill will. He is kind and fearsome, but the dead hears your prayers, since they are still of human nature and not free of goodwill or ill will. Do you not understand? History is older and wiser than you. Was there a time when there were no dead? Only recently have men begun to forget the dead and to think that they have now begun life, sending them into a frenzy. And with that, our prayer has concluded. I thank you for listening to this short entry from Jung's Black Book number 5. Look out for more material on this Black Book, as well as all things mind, consciousness, and Jung in the future. Until then, stay humble, and don't forget to look back and into yourself.